Accidental Love by Gary Soto, Chapter 15. So it was back to Washington, back to the crowds kicking down the narrow throat of poorly lit hallways, back to girls dipping their fingers into potato chip bags and throwing their heads back as if everything was funny, back to the ear splitting laughter, to shouts of, "Girl, what you mean?" And the rule of Spanish from Mexicano boys who 3 months before had been country boys that were now suddenly urban vatos. The Vietnamese boys with spiky hair threw sideways glances like darts. "It's noisy here," Marissa thought at lunchtime. She found one of her feet in a puddle of spilled soda. She grimaced and stepped out of the syrupy glaze and advanced a few steps in a cafeteria line. She paid for a bag of potato chips. She couldn't help breaking her vow to stay away from her junk food, left the commotion of the lunchroom, and headed out toward the front of the school, a quiet sanctuary. Security guards paced in front. Marissa had wondered how this move had happened. Only a few hours before she'd been in Hamilton Magnet, and then there she was at Washington, ripping open a bag of barbecue flavored potato chips. She had attracted a single pigeon, but that pigeon beat its crooked wings and flew to a group of students having lunch at a far bench. "I don't care," she remarked wistfully as she raised the chip to her mouth and began to chew without tasting the barbecue flavor. She watched the cars pass beyond the fence and pedestrians stroll, hurry, gallop, and run down the sidewalk. La Chota cruised past like a shark waiting to bite, and a UPS truck pulled up, braked, and turned on its hazard lights. For a moment, she imagined that she muscled UPS driver was delivering more potato chips, the preferred food group of this school, but he was pushing a dolly loaded with boxes of textbooks. It was a busy world beyond the fence, and a lonely place where she sat. She wished she could write a song and sing it. She had discovered at Hamilton Magnet that she possessed a good singing voice. The choir director had smiled at her when her voice stretched, and wasn't what that a sign that a voice inside was pretty? "I'm in a place," she sang, "in a place," but that's as far as she got before her made up song faltered. Across the lawn she spied Alicia and Roberto sitting on the edge of the school fountain, a gift from one of the classes long ago when the school had been white and money had appeared like leaves on a tree. Now the fountain was turned off and was used mostly as a garbage can. Cups and wrappers, bottles, old gym socks, popsicle sticks, splintered bic pens, poorly spelled notes, binders, Valentine cards from the year before, and other debris lay in the moat of rust colored water. Marissa buried her face in her hands. She couldn't bring herself to talk to Alicia yet. Maybe it wasn't true about her and Roberto. Maybe they were just talking one last time, but when she peeked through her fingers, she could see that they were holding hands. And was that the sparkle of a ring on Alicia's finger? Had she forgiven that rat? How could she? "I'm not going to be like them," she muttered. It was a vague promise, one that she knew she couldn't explain, even to herself. She poured her potato chips onto the ground, and the pigeon that had been working the group of other students returned to feed on the spicy calories that would keep it warm under its bent feathers. "Barrio bird," she thought. "Poor Barrio bird. Poor all of us." Marissa knew she still would still remain friends with Alicia. They had known each other for years. What harm had Alicia done to her? That she had picked a sorry ass boyfriend wasn't her fault, but maybe they just wouldn't be friends anymore. Marissa got up and returned to the main quad, where she encountered Leticia, who screamed, "What are you doing here? You spying, huh?" Marissa gave Leticia a hug. "They caught me and sent me back across the border." "And look at you," Leticia had stepped back. "You, like lost weight. You sick of something?" "No, just trying to get one of them." Marissa threw a hitchhiker's thumb at three guys headed toward the gym. Leticia and Leticia's friend sang like a chorus. "We hear ya." Marissa didn't take more than 3 steps before she dismissed her proclamation as another lie. She had lost weight for herself, not for some boy on his way to shoot baskets. She didn't care what those stupid boys thought. Why did they play during lunch and then bounce to class when lunchtime was over? Didn't they know they smelled funky after 10 minutes? No. She had lost weight for herself and, yes, for Renee. The day was a bumpy ride from class to class, and that afternoon she was glad to get home. She went to the bedroom and cried onto the tiny shoulder of her stuffed animal. She slipped into her pajamas. Finished with the day, she was tired and hungry. Tears would roll over again later when she lay in bed recounting the vice principal's scolding accusations hurled at her mother. Marissa scrutinized the clock. 4:15. Renee would be at rehearsal and singing like a bird. She was waiting for him to return home. Renee's mother would have sent him back to school after she figured out that Marissa, the chola, had gone away. She heard her cell phone ring. "Renee?" she asked, heart thumping. "Yeah, it's me." "Where are you? I thought your mom took your cell phone." Renee told her that he was using Trunk's cell phone, that he was in a parking lot at school. Then he only had a few minutes before his mother picked him up. "They sent me away," Marissa blubbered. She almost added that she thought it was her mother who had called the school and ratted on her. "My mom was really mad." Marissa could hear him start crying. His crying sounded like his honking laughter. "Renee, stop that," Marissa scolded. "I can't help it. Wait a minute." Marissa could hear him honking into his handkerchief. She had to smile. He was the only boy she knew who had pocketed a clean handkerchief at the start of the day. I think my mom is the one who turned you in. She asked me a lot about you, and I ended up telling her where you live. I'll call you whenever I can. He blew kisses into the cell phone and then hung up. Marissa was touched. His friend and main opponent in chess had been standing at his side and had witnessed Renee's words of love. That night, after dinner, Marissa's father kept the television off in protest of his daughters being expelled from a Hamilton magnet. He looked so much like a sad mule that Marissa considered patting his tan for him to say, "It's okay, puppy. I'm going to live." He sipped his coffee and finally spoke up. "It's better this way. You'll do good, Mija." He began. He began his story about the treks from school to school when he was young. His parents were migrant farm workers who worked crops in Oregon and Washington and California Central Valley. Using his thick fingers, he counted 16 schools, including one called Washington and another Hamilton. He sighed as he finished his coffee. But her mother was still fuming. She sat on the couch and, by the light of the dim lamp, worked furiously as she knitted what looked like a hangman's noose. Marissa swallowed. Was she really making a noose? If so, the vice principal, was that his name? Would at least hang in a noose made of soft wool. How dare they, her mother snarled at her father. Why scold me? I agree with you. He rolled his fingers on the arm of the recliner and reached for the remote control, but put it back down. This was going to be an evening of silence. The only noise came from the rapid clicking sounds of knitting needles. But Marissa made noise too. Her noise came from turning the pages of her biology book. For her, it was a time to learn. The next week brought showers that stripped trees of leaves and weaker branches, and had her father climbing the neighbor's roof to patch a leak. Autumn was giving away, and to winter in their valley town. Mornings, Marissa found herself shivering over the heater vent in the floor. Her pajama bottoms billowing about her. She was worried about how upset Renee was, and was relieved when he called on Trunk's cell phone to say, Marissa grimaced at the old fashioned phrase, everything was hunky dory. And are you sure? She asked. She was convinced that he was okay when he started his honking laughter as he described an unpleasant scene in Romeo and Juliet. At the premiere, Juliet had pushed and slapped Romeo on stage. Juliet's jealous rage had erupted when Romeo lovingly stroked the cheek of Lady Capulet, Juliet's mother. Then silence over the weekend. Another storm rolled in and brought down a power line that made them sit in the dark of their living room. Her father sat sleeping in his recliner, a hibernating bear. Her mother continued knitting, not a noose, as Marissa had imagined, but a sweater for her niece's forthcoming baby. The niece was 16, only a year and some months older than Marissa. On Monday morning, Marissa woke up with a sore throat and considered asking her mother if she could stay home, but she got dressed, shimmying into a dress she hadn't worn in months, but ate a breakfast and instead of walking the 6 blocks to school, accepted a ride from her mother because it had started to rain hard. She angled a barrette on her head and reddened her lips with lipstick. You look so cute in that hat, Mother said brightly as she wiped the inside of the fogged windshield with an old t-shirt she kept under the seat for such use. Thanks, Mom. But she didn't feel cute as her mind dwelled on school. She had encountered Alicia with and without an unrepentant Roberto. The two girls were friendly but not close. Mostly Marissa kept to herself. What friends she had before avoided her now. The rumor was that she transferred to Hamilton Magnet because she was stuck up but couldn't hang there because the classes were too hard. Before driving to school, her mother swung by her niece's house. Marissa hardly saw her cousin except at Christmas. They dropped off the sweater, and the cousin, barefoot on the porch, waved goodbye. Child bride, she was wearing pajamas printed with Disney characters. Marissa was surprised. Her mother hadn't had a remark such as, I hope that doesn't happen to you. No, her mother drove with both hands on the steering wheel, her face pushed forward as she peered through the windshield, which kept fogging up no matter how hard the defroster blew. The rain came down harder. At school, her mother leaned over and gave Marissa a kiss. You have a good day. Que linda, mija. You look so cute. Marissa got out of the car, waved, and touched the place where her mother had placed the kiss. Her mother hadn't kissed her like that in years, because she was early. Marissa ventured into the library where she noticed the boy with crooked glasses. For a heartbeat, she thought it was Rene, but the boy was too short, and the boy next to him even shorter. They were playing chess on a magnetic board. Both, she noticed, had high water pants and white socks. Nerds, she thought. Eggheads. Marissa sat down and opened her English textbook. The book was the same one she used at Hamilton Magnet. She turned to read the Robert Frost poem about snow, her lips moving over every third word. It was the quietness of the snow that attracted her. As she gazed up at the high windows of the library, she wished that the rain would flatten into snowflakes. She was reading the poem again when a voice called, A penny for your thoughts? She turned. Renee stood there in a long black coat. Renee? He shrugged, I guess. What are you doing here? She rose from her chair and walked into his coat, which had opened like bat wings. They hugged and kissed, and she remarked that he smelled like coffee. I drank a cup at breakfast. I'm living with my dad now. You are? Marissa was delirious with excitement. She would have burst into a snowflake if it were possible. But how? Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to surprise you. Are you surprised? Yeah, I am, she cooed. I missed you so much. They sat down at a table, aware that the librarian had cast an eye at them and spoke in whispers. Renee began by saying that his father took him in. He shared a large home with his girlfriend, which was in a Washington high school district. You got a transfer? Renee nodded. He described the last argument with his mother and how she had hit him. He ran out of the house and walked 6 miles to his father's home. I don't blame Dad for leaving us anymore. He described the showdown between his mother, and father later that evening at his dad's house. His father's defense tactic was to keep the screen door locked and let his ex-wife scream and claw the screen like a wild cat. She threatened to take him to court, and he threatened her by saying that he was going to take photographs of Renee's bruises and scratches. He had new ones on his arms and face. The police said he would love the police. He said would love such fine examples of motherly love. Marissa squeezed his hand and then released it to search for a Kleenex in her backpack. But Renee was quick to pick up his cue, snapping his handkerchief from his back pocket. They stared at each other, Marissa glancing every few seconds at the clock on the wall. They had 6 minutes before first period. Renee, she meowed. Renee, you look so different. Dad bought me new clothes. He clicked his boots together. What do you think? You look marvelous in your beret. Thank you, she spied. And his boots from under the table. They are nice. She wiped her eyes again with the handkerchief, but I think you're going to have to do something with your glasses. They were fogged up from the heat of the library, and she knew this was also true. The heat that could only be love. I'm going to be like it. I'm going to like it here, he said, lifting his eyebrows and jerking his head toward the boys playing chess. Marissa turned and was moved momentarily by a flutter of shame. She had never acknowledged those two boys. She had seen them in hallways, sometimes bouncing off older and stronger students, but she had never really noticed them. They hadn't been part of her world. She dabbed her eyes again. Hey, I have an idea. We'll start our own chess team, our own debate team, whatever kind of club you want, Marissa suggested. We can do Romeo and Juliet, if you wish. They got up, Marissa adjusting her beret, and together they strolled over to the two boys. The smaller boys pushed his eyeglasses up to his face. He seemed already to know Renee, and Renee started to suggest to move on the board, but remained quiet. Marissa witnessed a meeting of two minds. Dang, she thought, these nerds recognize each other? They know their own kind? When the bell rang for first period, Marissa and Renee gathered their backpacks. They left the library and nearly slipped on the steps. It was a snowing and a first for the valley town. Marissa was crazy with happiness as she turned arms out and mouth opening to catch flakes. I can't believe it, Renee shouted as he too twirled in his long coat flared. He slipped, fell, and rose again. It's really snowing, Renee. Marissa was spellbound, her cheeks burning pink in the cold. It's happening in our lifetime. Snow in our little town. Can you believe it? They ran out to the football field where they skidded and fell and brought their faces together for kisses, the taste of snowflakes on their lips. This is the end to Accidental Love.